Welcome to another episode of Better Business, Better Life. I'm your host, Deborah Chantry-Taylor. I'm passionate about helping entrepreneurs and their leadership teams get what they want out of business and life. On the show, I invite successful business owners and expert speakers to share their successes. They are open and honest about the highs and lows of business and also life as a business owner. We want to share those learnings with you to inspire you, but also to help you avoid some of the common mistakes. My hope is that you take something from each of these short episodes that you can put into action to help you get what you want, not only out of your business, but also your life. So good morning and welcome to another episode of Better Business, Better Life. Today I am joined by the delightful Anna Parker, who is the Senior Broker and Head of Auckland at Frank Risk Management. Welcome, Anna. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, good morning. And it's really lovely to be here.
Hey, so I'm really looking forward to this conversation. We're going to be talking about insurance today. And I know for most of you probably thinking, oh my goodness, do I really want to listen to this? It's a grudge purchase. It's not something I'm really interested in. But I have to just share with you that Anna and I met through a mutual friend who said we should catch up. We went for a walk and a talk and she shared with me her story. And I just thought, this is somebody I need to get on the podcast and share what she has learned over her years. So we're not going to start with the story, though. We're actually going to ask Anna, first of all, like we always do, what's your professional and personal best, Anna, that you can share with the listeners?
My professional best was setting up the Auckland office of Frank Risk Management around about a year and a half ago. And I did that with a 10-month-old, and it was quite a big call. I mean, you'll find out later that my story is I left law. So I left law, joined a larger American-owned broking house, then wasn't sure if broking was actually for me, went to approach the founders of Frank Risk to say, actually, what you're doing is fantastic. You're a disruptor in the industry. I really like everything about you. Please, could I set up an Auckland office? They thought that was a wonderful idea. And here we are a year and a half later, and it's been a fantastic year. So yeah, that was definitely a professional best for me.
Sounds fantastic.
And in terms of a personal best, I know that everyone's going to say this, but it is true. So my 2.5-year-old, I have a 2.5-year-old girl, and that's definitely a personal best.
Yeah.
Because she's just so bold, sassy. She's really determined. She always talks back to me, which I love. Strong-willed. She puts me in my place. The other day, I did her hair. She often doesn't let me do her hair, and I did her hair, put it on top of her head. And she touched it and said, no, mummy, that's wrong. I want hair like Elsa. Elsa has hair that wraps around her neck. 2.5 telling me how she wants her hair. So, I mean, so I'm doing her hair. And she said, Mummy, I believe you can do it. Like, try again, have another go. And she's coaching me through how to do her hair, which I really loved. And then she asked me at the end, how do you feel? You did it. And I said, I feel really proud, Rose, that I nailed the hairstyle that you want. So lots of that is intrinsic motivation. So that was another proud moment.
That is so awesome. It sounds like she may pick up some characteristics from her mum there, I think.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about your story now, because I think this is really important. So, you're working with Frank Risk Management right now, who's got a team of 40-odd staff, but that's not where you started, right? No. Your life was very, very different a few years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So you might have picked up an accent already. I'm from England, and I was born in Southampton. I moved over here about 15 years ago, and at which point I, for many years, was an insurance litigation lawyer. And what that means is that the law firm that I worked for was appointed by insurers as a panel law firm to act on claims that were really complex or difficult. So insurers have their own in-house claims team. And when anything gets difficult, high value, complex, or they just need an external legal counsel, then it gets farmed out to external lawyers. And I was one of those panel law firms. So I acted on a variety of claims across all insurance policies in defense litigation.
Wow.
And I did that for a number of years. And part of what I was discovering was that it's amazing when your insurance policy responds and you pay all this money for premiums and you think, right, well, something's happened. I have a claim against me. I need my insurance policy to respond, to pay for the compensation, to pay for legal fees. And most of the time that was the case, and it was, it worked really well. But sometimes business owners hadn't really thought about what their business activities were, or exclusions on policies, or was the actual policy going to be triggered by this particular claim circumstance. So part of my role was to explain to different people that their policies weren't going to respond in the way that they thought. And after doing that quite a few times over the years, I thought, I wonder if there's a better way to be of service, a better way to use this knowledge and skills and actually help people at the beginning stages or during when they don't have a claim, rather than just in a claim experience when there's nothing I can really do to help them because it's going to be a decline on their insurance policy. So I decided to leave law and go into broking.
And that must be a huge step to make, because we all know that lawyers are very well paid, and I mean, I'm not denying that it's huge amounts of work, but still, to take that sort of jump from there to insurance broking was massive, right?
Yeah, absolutely huge. And also because I had in New Zealand, they don't necessarily recognize your English law degree, so I had done law at in England, come over here and thought, I'll just be a lawyer here. Then I had to go back to university again. So I ended up with 2 law degrees. So to turn your back on all of that and say, actually, I just kind of want to help. And it's just how you feel. And I just felt like there were many insurance lawyers out there, but there weren't too many who had actually said, I'm going to leave insurance law and I'm going to use all of that and help businesses in a different capacity. So I felt really motivated by that. That was kind of like my I will do this. I could make a difference here. And so far those suspicions were proved right. It's going really well. I really enjoy it.
Excellent. And so what kind of insurance do you do in your current role? So what does Frank Risk Management actually do?
Yeah, so it's commercial insurance, and that can range from your business assets to so big motor fleets or commercial property buildings to liability insurance. So my specialty is liability insurance, and that is professional indemnity, directors and officers. Liability insurance covers you for all legal liability you owe or you're accountable to third parties. So there's a whole cyber insurance also falls under the banner of liability. So yeah, anything commercial really.
Fantastic. And I know that when we did our walk and talk, you gave me an example of a client that you worked with, but what really struck me was you have a different model of charging. Is that right?
We do.
Yeah.
We don't believe in commission. So the traditional broking model is that you place insurance with an insurer and that insurer pays you commission, a percentage. And in New Zealand, it can vary from 15 to 30%. Plus, there are kickback arrangements, profit shares. So an insurer will say, hey, I will give, there's all these different models out there that mean that if you put a lot of business with one particular insurance company, you will get a lot of kickbacks and things coming your way back to you as a broker. And that was a model that I hadn't really appreciated as a lawyer. And I discovered once I became a broker. And it was more about how at the time, certainly, I think the rules have changed a little bit now, but at the time, it wasn't disclosed on your premium bill. So you would get a bill for $100,000 and you'd think, oh, right, that's the cost of my insurance. That's really expensive. But it wasn't broken down to say your insurance cost $70,000 and the broker's commission is $30,000. It wasn't explained like that. And also, it's not really about the money you pay, it's the value you get. Like how much value do I think I'm getting from my insurance and from my insurance broker and the person who's advising me around insurance? Do I feel like this is really, I'm really looked after, I'm getting really solid advice? Is that sort of commission worth it? And when you flip it on its head and you say, we will operate on a transparent way, so we will provide our services at an hourly rate like a lawyer would charge, or fixed fee, or however it is, suddenly the clients will think to themselves, oh, this is so clear. I really appreciate someone showing me exactly like the cost of what your insurance is, and then what I'm paying someone to give me advice around all of it. And yeah, it's quite a game changer. And another really important point about commission is that when you're paid by an insurance company, to me, it seems like quite a large conflict. So you come to me and say, hey, will you give me some insurance advice, place my insurance, go to the market, get all these different terms back. But ultimately, you're not paying for my services. The insurer is paying for my services. So to me, conflict 101, whereas at Frank, the company I work for, it's completely separate. So a bill for insurance, and then we are paid separately by the client. So we act for the client, all their interests are put first.
Yeah. And so, as you said, it can be a fixed fee or it can be an hourly rate. So you're not saying that insurance brokers shouldn't be paid for the value that they add. Absolutely the opposite.
Yeah.
You're saying that actually they should be paid based on the value that they actually add.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And so tell me about the kinds of insurance that business owners should be thinking of. And also, if they're going to go to a broker, what should they have already thought of before they come to you?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a couple of aspects there that your basic insurance policies that kind of, if a startup came to me and said, oh, I'm just getting into business, what sort of policy should I look at? You have to split it into two camps. So you've got your physical assets, what's tangible? Do you own any buildings? Do you own any stock? Do you have any office equipment? What can you physically touch and what's tangible? And also the liability. So what things could go wrong? So what's worst case scenario where things could go wrong that you can transfer some of that risk to an insurer? So when you think about physical assets, you have your material damage, so you're insuring the stock, the office furniture, whatever it is, so material damage. And then you can also have business interruption, which would provide financial assistance in the event of a material damage loss. And then also your commercial motor. And then when you go into the liability area, some of the policies would be general liability, which covers property damage and personal injury to third parties. So such as a tradesman might accidentally fracture a water pipe, causing some damage. Professional indemnity is also a big one. So if if your business offers services or advice to people, and that third party suffers a financial loss because of something you said or some of the advice you gave, then a professional indemnity policy would pay for those defense costs and any compensation to that third party. And then another one that people don't really think about, especially in the startup stages, is directors and officers insurance. And it's also known as D&O, and that's designed to provide financial compensation to help directors and officers against allegations of mismanagement while they carry out their duties and their day-to-day management of governance of the company.
Okay, so that's if you're starting up. What if you're an established business? Let's just say you have a lot of that cover.
Yes.
When would you consider reviewing it? How often should you review it? Why should you review it? What will you do in that situation?
Yeah, so bare minimum is every year to review, to sit back and say, has my business changed? Have the activities changed? What am I doing? Otherwise, I would also recommend every 6 months, really, to say, like, what's going on? Is there insurance out there that has come onto the market or something I haven't really considered? So cyber insurance would be a big one at the moment. A lot of people, business owners that come to me, don't really have or haven't thought about cyber insurance. And there's two aspects to that, which is whether you need cyber insurance or whether you need to kind of put more risk mitigation practices into how you protect from cyber criminals and all those sorts of things. So that's kind of twofold. But yeah, it's really looking at it and thinking, I know, like we talked about earlier, that insurance is a grudge purchase, but paying a lot of attention to it and thinking, is this what I'm doing? Is my business still in the same, have I changed staff, activities? Like, what's different about my world that someone should come and look at? And also claims, like if you have an insurance claim, so to kind of analyze after the insurance claim and say, oh, what worked well? My insurance paid out, or the insurance didn't pay out, and what could have been done differently? Do I need to pay attention here, or are there risk mitigation practices that we need to start looking at?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think especially in current times with all the changes that are going on around the world, with COVID kind of prompting some of them, but even so, it's changed the whole way that we work. It's probably a good time to actually go, am I doing the same as what I was doing 6 months, 12 months ago, or have things changed significantly?
Yeah.
And therefore a chance to review it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And also looking at your insurance policy the documents itself and getting the documents out. I'm not saying reading the whole policy wording. I'm saying grabbing the insurance schedule and looking at it and thinking, what does that exclusion mean? So your policy schedule will also contain exclusions, endorsements. What do they actually mean? Picking up the phone or going and having a meeting with your broker to say, I've seen all these things on the policy. Can you explain them? Can you put it into terms I'm going to understand what that means? Because often, I mean, we saw quite recently an exclusion on a policy, an accountant's policy, a tax mitigation warranty on an accountant's professional indemnity liability policy. This had the effect of excluding all cover under the policy for tax-related advice. That's exactly what accountants do. So their professional indemnity policy had all the cover stripped out of it. And the accountants truly had no idea that this exclusion sat on their policy. We rectified that and sorted it out, but they just hadn't paid attention to what those exclusions actually meant.
And I think, and I'm going to say this because I used to work in insurance myself, as you know, and I think there is an element of insurance companies do make it difficult for you to fully understand the way, the way the policies are worded. And that's not, that's just the way that they operate. I get that. But I think that it's important, as you said, to pay attention. If you don't understand it, at least have somebody else go through it with you and explain it to you to make sure you actually understand what you're covered for. Because the worst time is at claim time when it's too late, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So let's talk about some of the common mistakes that you've seen made with people in insurance.
Yeah, I mean, look, it really is the business activities. So to look at your schedule, and it will be called business description, business activities. Let's talk about a builder again. So that builder might do a bit of building work, some roofing, some drainage, alongside all of their standard building work. But the insurance policy might just say building construction, building work. It won't actually specifically list out roofing and drainage work. If that's not on the schedule, if that's not listed out as a business activity, then the insurers are unlikely to help out if a claim came in from a homeowner, for example, about the roofing work that the builder did. So that's a common error, and people don't really pay attention to that. So that's something I would definitely look out for. That's a big one.
And what about, so I work with a lot of professional services and family businesses. Now they are a mixture of product and service professionals, but just in terms of, is there anything specific that you should be thinking of, particularly when it's a family business and you've got a whole bunch of the family involved in the business? Is there anything specific they should be looking at in terms of insurance?
I mean, making sure that the suite and the structure is set up. I think it's kind of hard to know until often clients will come to me and say, here's my current insurance world. Here's what I have. Will you go through everything? And we'll go through all the fine-tooth comb and check over everything. And when you kind of look at the whole picture together, that's important. And get a second opinion. I mean, people will often say that about doctors. And lawyers even. So if you go near a doctor or a lawyer and you're not happy with the advice you're getting, you'll happily go to get a second opinion. And I would say the same about your broker. If you think, am I getting the right advice? Is someone putting a lot of care and attention into my insurance? Get a second opinion. Definitely get someone else to review it and make sure that the structure and you transferred all of your risk and you've got the right policies. And are you over-insured? Are you under-insured? Because people will spend a lot of money on insurance, but is this the right insurance for your business? Is this what you need? Yeah.
And what do you think makes a good broker? Because obviously there's lots of brokers out there, and I'm sure some really great ones out there. But what, in your opinion, makes a good broker? What should I be looking for if I'm looking for, to change, for example?
Yeah, definitely knowledge and experience in the industry. And a really persistent broker, someone who isn't going to just say, that's a really hard risk, I can't find you insurance for that. So that's happened quite a few times. A recent example was there was a startup company who came to us and they were importing restricted veterinary medicine. and they were trying to get a contract with New Zealand's largest leading poultry producer. It really was the opportunity of a lifetime for this startup company to have a contract with such a large corporate. It was a big deal for them. They couldn't get insurance because no underwriters wanted to offer terms because they deemed this risk was too significant for this small startup when dealing with a large corporate. And as a result, they came to us because their company was about to go out of business because they couldn't sign this contract and they couldn't get insurance. And the ones that were going to offer insurance were going to put what's called a total product efficacy exclusion on the policy. I'm not going to go too insurance geek on you. I'm not going to delve into that, but just like it was a bad thing to have on an insurance policy. So the insurers who were out there were saying, I will give you this insurance, but for what you actually need it for, I'm going to strip away a lot of the cover like we talked about earlier. So it was a matter of a lot of other brokers have said to this client, we can't get you terms. We're not going to help you kind of on your own. Actually, how can you work with that client to change their risk profile? Are there ways of putting them in touch with lawyers, for example, to get the right compliance, documents, their risk profile looking better? So we worked alongside that. So it wasn't a case of hearing no from all the market. It was actually how can you repurpose and rejig the risk to make it look better to the underwriters. So we worked with them. And I mean, that was an incredible result for this business who had been told no, to suddenly be able to sign that contract. Their business has since flourished, and it's extraordinary to witness. So I think if you were a business owner out there and you heard a broker say, no, that's a really difficult risk, no, I can't find options, well, then ask around and actually say, either to your broker, please can you make sure you go to all the markets, global, local, or just see who else is out there who's got a bit more of persistence behind them.
Sure. And I suppose that also comes at the other end of the thing when it's claim time as well, right? You want somebody to go in and fight for you. Yep.
So important. You really want a broker who is going to hold your hand and be your advocate for you and really understand the nuances of the policy and how the policy is triggered when a claim comes in and what needs to happen, and working alongside not only lawyers, loss adjusters, helping you collect evidence if necessary, working through the story and the scenario and helping you with the chronology, just really someone who's working alongside you for all of that. Claims time is such a critical and important moment for someone. You really, really need an advocate alongside you in that moment.
And you're probably going to hate me for saying this, but I'm just thinking back to our original conversation about, when brokers are paid commission by the companies, that's part of the conflict, isn't it? Because when it comes to claims time, there must be something in there that if they, who do they actually work for? I suppose is a question I would ask. Not going to ask you to answer that, but that's what's going through my mind is actually if they're being paid these big commissions by the insurance companies, are they going to fight for your really small claim when they've got this great big book full of insurance with the people who pay them?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. What any other sort of common mistakes that we should look out for in terms of when you're working through your insurance policies?
The limits of indemnity. So that could be $1 million, $2 million, $5 million. So often clients will be asked to enter into a contract, and that contract will say we require you to hold $1 million of general liability. And so they will look at the contract and either just think to themselves, actually, I had one the other day where someone had asked this very small company to hold $50 million.
Whoa.
And it was such an outrageous sum for such a small job. And I don't even think the fee was very high for this client and what they said. And they called me up and said, can you help me find $50 million of professional indemnity insurance? And I said, well, first of all, what's this contract? What's the contract value? And have you tried to push back on this? Have you said that is an outrageously high amount? That will cost way more than the entire cost of the project and what you want me to do. Where can we go with that? And they hadn't even crossed their mind that they could push back on a contract and what's in a contract. So common mistakes are looking at what the contract says, and can you push back on it? And also, do you need a lawyer's advice on this? Like, are you just signing a contract because you think, some massive company is giving you a contract, I should sign it because I want the work and I want the business? Or actually, should you just spend a little bit of money to get it reviewed by a lawyer who will talk you through a lot of these issues?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, it is interesting because I think often that happens, particularly with the sort of small, medium-sized businesses working with large corporates. They come with kind of a standard contract, but that does not mean that it's set in stone. Yeah. It's almost like that's the starting point for negotiation, right?
Completely. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we're coming to the end of the podcast. It's amazing how time flies, even when talking about insurance. Can you believe that? So a couple of things that I'd like to ask. I always ask guests to talk about their top 3 tips that they would actually share. And for you, I'd love a little bit of both, because obviously you're running, you've set up and running the Auckland branch of a very successful business, but also you're an insurance broker. So what were your top 3 tips from a personal perspective, from a business perspective?
Sure. Definitely goes back to the what we talked about earlier, which was really pay attention to your insurance policy. Even if it's just a bit dull and a bit boring, please get those documents out, cast your eye over the schedules, look at it and think, does that reflect what I want? Are the limits what I actually want? Do I have the insurance I need for the risks that my business has? And are the business activities adequately explained in the schedule? So really get those documents out and have a look through, and work alongside your broker and ask questions. Be curious about insurance, of like, what does this exclusion mean? Am I covered if this scenario happened? Work through your worst case scenario and think, if this happened to me, am I covered? Have I transferred my risk appropriately to an insurance company? And work with your broker alongside that. The next one would be, in all aspects of life, I would say, be really persistent and don't give up. I mean, you hear, I'll hear a no, and I might think to myself, oh, not yet. That's a not yet. Maybe next year. So yeah, be persistent. And
just on the bottom of that, I was actually at a presentation last night with Bill James, and he was sort of saying, as Kiwis, we tend to very much take one no as meaning no. And he said you should at least get to the second no before you kind of give up, because the first no is just it's a brush off. It's easy. So you ask the question, so why do you feel that way? And what can I, is there anything I can do to change your mind? And it's only when you get the second no that you can go, okay, maybe I should give up now.
Exactly. Yeah. And that leads into be curious. So be curious about where has that no come from? Are there ways that you could improve? Often I will say to other people around me that a client or someone you want to work with will say, oh, no, I'm not interested. And they'll just say, oh, no worries, like speak to you next year or something. Whereas actually you want to know why, what are the hurdles that stand in the way of us working together? Like what are those reasons? So I always want to push a bit further and say, can you explain why that is, or what stands in the way of us working together, or what are those reasons, or what can I work on, or what can we all work on, and things like that. Like, how can you improve processes, systems, service, all of those sorts of questions. Like, be really curious and want to know reasons why someone says what they say.
Perfect.
And then the another one would be bold. Just walk into the room and know your worth, know your value, be confident. And
that goes on both sides, right? It's like at the end of the day, we're working together. So let's embrace and appreciate the value that each brings to the relationship, and work together for the greater good. Yeah.
How could it be a win for you and a win for me?
Yeah, love it.
How can we both be happy in this scenario?
Yeah. Hey, look, as I said, unfortunately, we are running out of time, but I guess if people want to talk to you, I mean, I'm sure they get huge value out of talking to you. How would they actually get hold of you? What's the best way to do that? And for new clients, how does that work?
Yeah, so you can go to, I think you've got a link to my bio, and it has on our website, and it has all the contact details, and you can reach out to me. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can send me a message there. All my contact details should be easily found on LinkedIn or on our website. And new businesses, just reach out, and we have an initial discovery meeting where I learn more about you, and I learn more about your business and what's the right insurance out there for you, and we work through all of this.
Yeah, fantastic. I can see you're really passionate about what you do. I guess there's no chance you're going back to being a lawyer, is there?
No.
Hey, Anna, look, thank you so much for making the time this morning. I know that you've kind of got your daughter off to school and come in and got ready for this podcast. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Look forward to talking again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us on Better Business, Better Life with me, your host, Deborah Chantry-Taylor. If you enjoyed what you heard, then please subscribe to this podcast and let us help you to get what you want out of business and life. Each week we release a new short episode which will give a success story and 3 takeouts to put into action immediately. These will help you take your business from good to great. The podcast is also supported by free resources, templates and useful tools which you can find at deborahchantrytaylor.com. I am a trained entrepreneur leadership and business coach, a professional EOS implementer and an established business owner myself. I work with established businesses to help them get what they want. Feel free to contact me if you'd like to have a chat about how I might be able to help you, or if you'd like to join me as a guest on this podcast. Thanks again to NZ Audio Editors for producing this podcast. See you on the next episode.